What is up, guys? It's Young Tactician coming at you with another video. This time we're doing top lane Poppy matchups in terms of difficulty. So not to be confused with the top lane tier list. This is just a matchup tier list for Poppy. Disclaimer, this is my own opinion. So if you disagree or want to add on to anything, just feel free to leave down in the comments below. I'm going to quickly go over every champion and why I think they're in that specific matchup. I do think my opinion holds some sort of merit though, because I am Grandmaster's Peak Poppy main, alongside with the fact that I have 2 million mastery points on the champion across like all my accounts. So I think we just need to keep that in mind. And if you want to go and see the end of the result of the tier list, just fast forward to the end of the video, honestly. But if you want to listen to me talk for a little bit, you know, I'm gonna get straight into it. So Aatrox favorite matchup, just because if you wait out a series of Qs, it's pretty easy to get some good trades onto him. You know, you could W his E, and then if you go Bramble, it's just really easy. Akali, favorite matchup as well. Ever since her Q received nerfs, it's been a lot more playable. Could W her E, her ultimate 1 and her ultimate 2. Ultimate 2 is a bit harder to W, but R1 and E tend to be more telegraphed, so you could W those. Don't trade with her when she's in her shroud. Camille, also favorite matchup. You have to be careful though, because she does outscale you. She's a tank killer. She does have access to her W, which is longer range than your Q, but it's on a way longer cooldown, and so that for that you could punish her for every other creep she goes for when your Q is up. And yeah, it's just pretty straightforward matchup. Cho'Gath, skill-based matchup, probably the most skill-based tank matchup in my opinion. Gotta be careful with his Q, and gotta be careful for his sustain, really is the big thing, because he could actually, if he plays it well enough, he could actually get some really good trades on you while being able to out-sustain you. Just a very spooky champion, because his 6 spike is really big compared to your 6 spike, so just got to be careful for that. Darius, dodge this matchup permanently. I don't have a single video on my channel against the champion for a reason. Just perma dodge. Gangplank, also you want to perma dodge. His Q spam is just too much for you to handle. If you go even with the lane with a Gangplank, you're hard losing the game already because of what he scales into. Just really bad to pick Poppy into. On top of that, he has global impact, which is just not balanced. Mundo is a favorite matchup just because you have a small hitbox, so it makes it really easy to dodge his Qs as long as you focus on that, and then you could duck into the minion waves to do so as well. And every creep he needs to get, he needs to walk up to literally, so you could Q spam him. Fiora, actually a skill-based matchup. You could Q, or sorry, she could QW your W, which if she pulls that off successfully, like you'll probably just die outright. Actually a matchup based on reaction time, because she can W your E and your R. Even though she might be on a stun angle, she could just be baiting you. All comes down to which person is the better player. Garen is actually one of your easiest matchups in the game, believe it or not. Once you learn this matchup, you're gonna want to pick Poppy into it like all the time, just because he needs to walk up to every creep. So you can just Q him, and if he tries to Q at you, you Q him and run in the opposite direction. You have W as a safety net in case you do need that extra movement speed to get out of his range. So there's that. Gnar, between skill to hard matchup, just because he's able to kite Poppy easily. Got to be careful for him getting his 3 strikes on you, but you do have good tools to deal with him in terms of if you call your jungler for a gank, because you could W his E whether he's in melee or range form. Try to find him more when he's in melee than range form. I find it easier to get more damage onto him. Hecarim, favorite matchup. You could W his E. Your Q outranges his Q, but he can move while he's casting his, so you just got to be careful for that. Go armor, fairly straightforward matchup. Just got to be careful. Don't go for any prolonged or extended trades with him. Alawi is a scale-based matchup. You dodge the tentacles, you win. You don't, you lose. You could W her W. Careful for her ultimate. Get grievous wounds if you need it. Aurelia is actually a skill-based matchup, even though you could W her Q. Just because if she gets 5 stacks, regardless of whether or not you W'd her Q, she's probably going to win an extended trade if she gets a stun land on you or whatnot. But just go grievous wounds. And Poppy hard shits on Aurelia in a team fight environment, but I wouldn't say 1v1, like they could easily go toe to toe. Jax, easy as fuck. Poppy's probably Jax's hardest counter in the entire game. Just take W level 2, Q him for every creeps he goes for. If he tries to Q you, W him and Q him again, and then the matchup just plays itself from there. Jace, favorite matchup. You're weaker than him all the way up to level 3, but that is really early, just literally first 3 waves. So once you're level 3, you should look to trade with him. Take W level 2 if he tries to melee form you, then you can also get a good trade that way, kind of in the same sense of the Jax matchup. Kalista, fairly hard matchup just because you're still ranged, but you do well against her in the sense that if you call for jungler, you could set up ganks really well. But I wouldn't recommend picking Poppy into her just because you could W her passive. It makes it really easy to deal with her in a jungle gank, but I still wouldn't pick Poppy into her. Karma, put it in a hard matchup. You do run across that AP Karma top player once in a while or support, but I haven't seen any of it this season, but I wouldn't pick Poppy into it. But if you do get the matchup, like if you go even, you could contribute to a team environment just as much as Karma, which is the nice part. Kale, skill matchup, you hard your shit on her from levels 1 to 6, 6 to 9, it's even, and then after that she just takes a piss on you. But if you plays levels 1 to 6 correctly, you could completely make her relevant by building such a lead that you could just go around and snowball the map. Kennen, pretty hard matchup, but with the new MR items, it's a lot easier to deal with him, in my opinion. He's not that strong of a champion right now. I've played him, so I wouldn't worry too much about Kennen. Like, I just play it out and play to go even, and you can sometimes get good trades on him if the Kennen is misusing his abilities or not putting any stun marks on you. Kled, favorite matchup just because you could W his E and you could W his Q when he's dismounted, which is really nice. You know, you have a small hitbox and his Q is already as thin as a skill shot as it is, so it makes it really easy for you to dodge it if you just focus on dodging it. Avoid his frenzied auto attacks, obviously. Lucian is still a hard matchup like any other ranged top laner, really. You're able to W his E, so in the same sense of Kalista, just call for jungler to set up ganks. Try not to go for extended trades to get PTA'd or whatever he's running, because that shit would hurt. Build ninja tabbies, rush that shit. Malphite, I think it's a favorite matchup just because like it costs him so much mana to like Q spam you if he tries to do it, and the fact that you run corrupting pot and you're not as mana reliant, you can get as many Qs off as him and as he does on you, even more, just because you're not as reliant on mana. So and he has to walk up for every creep you go for, right? So you could just Q him in that sense. Maokai, same thing pretty much as Maokai, or wait, am I confusing them? Malphite, same thing as Maokai, same thing as Malphite. There we go. Just wanna, you could get grievous wounds if their enemy team is healing. Say if they have like a Kane in the jungle or whatever, you go like Executioner's Calling. It's not the worst. Mord is a hard matchup, but if you're good enough at Poppy, it actually becomes a skill-based matchup. But I know a lot of you guys suck, so I'll put him as a hard matchup. Just try not to pick Poppy into it. But if you do, like, you have a small hitbox, if you capitalize that to dodge his Q and his E, you can win the matchup. You can use your E to dodge his Q and his E as well by Eing onto a minion. And if he ulties you, you could run to the outer edge of the ultimate and just R him away, and then it kind of cancels both ults out. Nasus is a pretty favorable matchup just because he's like a Jax where he has to walk up to every creep. So you could just perma Q him for every one of those and then eventually you'll whittle him down. But he does outscale you, obviously. Nico, I'd put Nico hard matchup. Haven't seen any as well. Especially if it's on hit Nico, it becomes a lot harder. But if it's like standard AP Nico, then I put it as a skill matchup. Just try your best to dodge your skill shots, obviously, and don't take too many trades with her. Build MR, and once you get maybe like first item, first mythic, you should be able to be here in an extended trade, as long as it's not on hit Nico. Olaf is a pretty hard matchup. If you're unexperienced with Pop, you probably just dodge it outright. If you get flexed on with it, you got to be really confident in dodging his Qs. Like, if you get hit by flurries of Qs, you're probably going to have to be forced to use your flash. If you're caught up in a series of Qs and there's a minion behind you, try to E to the minion behind you to disengage, and then he won't be able to just follow up with a series of Qs because you've built distance. You use your W as a safety net, last resort, when you know it's going to get you out of that sticky situation. But other than that, it's playable if you're good enough at Poppy, honestly. Ornn, I put Ornn as easy as fuck. I really like this matchup. You could W his E, and you could W his ultimate when it comes to hitting the ram back on his R2, which is really good in team fights and in laning phase if you have the opportunity to. What's nice about Ornn is when he tries to brittle you, or rather use his W on you, you should never get hit by the brittle auto attack, because if you should Q him in this moment, because you'll get hit by both parts of your Q 100%, and he gets applied a slow, so he won't have the movement speed to catch up to you to auto attack you. Only thing you need to be careful for is that your Qs are literally the same ability, except his is longer range and generates terrain. So he does have an advantage on you in that aspect, but it is a longer cooldown. So you just play around that knowledge and you should be able to win the matchup. Poppy, not going to put it on the tier list because if you're playing normals, you're a scrub. Go play ranked, get good. Quinn, same thing for Lucian and Kalista. You could W her dash, call for jungler. Renekton, I put Renekton skill-based matchup just because he does have the tools to deal with you, even though you could W his E. His Q is around the same range as yours, and it provides him with sustain, as well as his W breaks your shield. So like he does have the tools of dealing with you, and if you go on an extended trade with him, like you could be in a predicament. As well as he can E onto you from a minion, but not necessarily get into your W range if he's good enough at Renekton. I've seen Renektons do that against me before, so you got to just be careful for that. Rengar, I'd also put skill-based matchup, just because you don't want to W every single one of his passive leaps out of the brush. Like some of them are good to take, some of them are actually bad to take. You just got to be able to assess which ones are good and bad, and that's going to come from experience playing against it. So if you're unexperienced, like you could just get shit on by this. As Riven, easy as fuck. You could W all three of her Qs. You could W her E. You obviously want to try to W that third Q because it's the one that CCs. You Q her for every melee creep she goes for. Rumble's actually a hard matchup. Go on an extended trade with Rumble, he just shits on you. Go for a shirt trade, he still shits on you. So you just want to, you know, get that MR, try your best to go even. Rise, skill-based matchup. Gotta abuse his early mana pool, but then afterwards, especially if he's running phase rush, he could just kite you really easy, which is Poppy's biggest weakness. But if you do get those stuns on him, it's pretty good. Also, any of these matchups, really, if you could get that stun, you usually want to take it. The only matchups where I wouldn't go for a stun, literally, are the ones that I have listed in dodge tier. Set is a skill-based matchup. People don't know their limits when it comes to facing this champion, but here's a couple tips I could give you, is that when he E's you to stun, you Q and then you run away, and then you try your best to avoid the big nuke ability with his shield. I forget what it's called, the Haymaker, I think. And you could W him at the end of his ultimate to put on extra damage / CC, which is a lot of things people don't know in the matchup. Shen, also skill-based matchup. Just because you could W his taunt doesn't mean you counter him. If he taunts you while he's in your hitbox, the taunt will still go through, even if you W it. As well as his series of Qs is more damage that your Q will put out onto him if you guys trade those abilities. Shyvana, I'm not going to put her on the tier list. You don't really see her top lane, but if I did have to put her on the tier list, it'd probably be between favorite to skill matchup, sure. Singed, really easy matchup. Just Q him whenever he runs around near you. You can E to a minion to disengage if you feel like he's going to engage onto you. Just punish him with your passive, fairly straightforward. Sion, skill-based matchup as well. You can use your E to dodge his Q, and that's really the key to learning the matchup. Don't want to use your E on him when he's queuing, because he'll just put it on a reduced cooldown. You'll probably hit by the second one, break his shield. Try your best to avoid his E and his ultimate. You can use your E to avoid his ultimate too as well. So you just got to play around those things. Your W for extra movement speed. Swain, I'd probably put him between skill matchup to E to hard matchup. Just before he gets his ultimate, he's not that big of a threat. Afterwards, he could go toe-to-toe. Silas, pretty favorable matchup. Could W his W and both parts of his E. You want to try to W his W though, but that's hard because it's a fairly fast dash. But if you do get the W on his W, it's really worth, because he doesn't get a heal and he misses his biggest nuke ability onto you. So it's really nice. Teemo, I'd dodge this matchup. I mean, if I'm playing in low elo, I'm not dodging it. But if I'm playing in my elo, I'm dodging it, because a good Teemo player should never ever lose to Poppy. He just has the tools to deal with the champion. Urgot is pretty favorable matchup. He could W his E dash, which is hella telegraphed. And he should never get an extended trade on you, which is what Urgot likes to do. As long as you Q him and then just walk away in the opposite direction, because he can't use his E to close the gap, obviously. Victor, Victor, I put him in a hard matchup, but I don't know. I don't have enough experience in this matchup. Really, I've faced a few Victors when Victor top was meta with like Omnistone. That shit was just hella AIDS. But nowadays, cause he doesn't, was it Omnistone? Sorry, no, it was the random keystone that generated random items and like gold and stuff. I forget what, Kleptomancy, yeah. But nowadays, I feel like you should be able to at least fight him if you could get a good E onto the minion wave to close the gap. Vladimir, scale-based matchup, but he does outscale you. He just plays the lane to go even. But if you could capitalize on those windows of Eing onto minions, get Executioner's Calling, it's really playable. Volibear, also skill-based matchup. You just gotta know your champion limits. You could W his Q, but you still get stunned. You could E out of his E. E to disengage, W to disengage if you feel like you're just gonna get shit on. Yasuo, pretty easy matchup, but could go up to favorite matchup if the Yasuo player is good. Easily could go up to skill matchup if the Yasuo player is just godlike, but yeah, I think it's pretty easy because you could just W his E and then Q him. But he does have win wall access for your passive, so that's kind of annoying. Yorick is pretty skill-based matchup, honestly, because after 6 he just outskills you as well. Like, it's really annoying after 6 actually, but pre-6 you should be able to bully him. You can E out of his little wall thingy by Eing onto one of his golems or Eing onto a minion to get out of it that's behind you if you need to disengage. But then other than that, you could Q him for every minion he goes for since he's literally melee range. Wukong, easy as fuck matchup. Could W his E, could W his W. Just gotta really look out for that E animation. Once you get used to that, it's really easy. Gotta be careful for his level 6 spike and go armor. With the W onto W though, it usually happens by accident, but if you do hit that, then it's like usually really good. Zac, I'd put him at favorite matchup just because it's a bit of cheese. He goes Conqueror, step on his Blobbits, W his E obviously to cut off his escape for any jungle ganks or any engage he tries to put onto you, but be careful because if he's really close to you, then that E is probably gonna go through because you won't have time to react to it. But yeah, guys, that was my video on Poppy's top lane matchups. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Please follow me on my social medias, especially Twitter, because that's where the hoes at. Alright, that was enough of this video. Young Tactician signing out. Peace.